Hi, this is Steve Farnsworth for the Steveology Group and the Steveology blog. Today I'm joined by the effervescent Erin Robbins O'Brien, who's the COO of GinzaMetric and a marketing analytics guru. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you. I'm not sure anybody's ever used the word effervescent other than in a denture commercial, but I'll take it as a plus.
Well, you're very much qualified for that word. Let's dig into measuring the effectiveness of content marketing. How can you determine if you have the right KPIs for measuring your content marketing goals effectiveness?
So kind of three things that I use for my marketing stuff, and what I try to tell people when they ask questions like this is, you need to be able to track the content all the way through to revenue. So you need to understand how this content is actually contributing to the bottom line for your organization, because for the majority of businesses today, revenue is the chief goal. Like, you've got to make money. So understanding that, kind of how that connective tissue happens, is key. You need to be able to track content both individually and at a campaign level. So not just a piece of content got 1,000 tweets and 500 views. You need to be able to kind of group it together logically and understand how all of these pieces kind of intermingle and relate to each other. And then individual pieces of content from an analytics and metrics perspective need to be measured for a variety of reasons as well. You also need to know what specifically about the content is working. So saying just this ebook worked really well, so like, yay, we did great on this ebook, and now I'm going to create 1 million more ebooks, is not necessarily helpful if it was one particular thing about the content that was working. Let's say it was the topic. Maybe the topic is particularly important to your audience, or maybe it was the distribution channel, or maybe you threw some paid advertising, or maybe somebody important picked it up and shared it, and you had some key influencer help in getting it shared. So you need to understand kind of what about why that content was successful is important as well.
What are the consequences to marketers and their brand for not having goal and KPI alignment?
You miss out on creating better content that would work more effectively for your audience. So you're spending time and money creating this content, promoting this content. Hopefully you're spending time and money creating this, and it's not just being auto-generated by something. So you're really missing out on taking that time and optimizing it to create the best possible thing. You're missing out on higher conversion rates, because chances are you're not the only person creating content in your industry, and that your competitors are out there doing it too, right? So you're not just competing for eyeballs in a blank space. You're competing for them with other people in your market. So it's important to spend your time wisely. You're also probably not maximizing budget and resources accurately. So we're talking about everybody has every marketer I know has a budget, right? Whether that budget is large or small, the need expands to fit that amount of money that you've got. So when we're talking about today, and having somebody come and create a professional YouTube video, which could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, or promoted tweets and all sorts of things, you want to make sure that every dollar spent yields some X higher return.
What are two examples of content marketing goals and the right metrics that would verify the content's effectiveness?
So I'd say understanding kind of the two are linked for me. Campaign to conversion and conversion to revenue are really important. So, for example, you set up a campaign with a target audience in mind and kind of KPIs that match your department goals, which should match your company goals, right? And if your conversion is as an e-commerce platform, for example, to add to shopping cart and then from shopping cart to checkout, or for B2B, maybe something like download a white paper and fill out a form, you want to be sure that the content has a direct way to make that happen, and that you can measure when people visit this particular content if they take the next step. So this means that you need to understand at a granular level who you're driving there initially, and then once they get there, what they're doing. And then if they don't, why not? Or if they did come there and they did convert, it's not just enough anymore to say, we have a 10% conversion rate or whatever that is. You need to understand specifically what creates the conversion so that you can optimize it and replicate it time and time again, not only on that channel, but there may be best practices you can leverage for other channels as well.
How do you identify what to track so that you will capture data that is actionable?
This is going to sound terrible, but I like to track everything that I can possibly track when I have the resources to do it, right? When I used to work for a large enterprise organization and I had some BI tools at my disposal, it was great because it meant that I could, at a granular level, look at a lot of different things. Now, I also worked at a startup where I had about 18 people or so, not in my department, but the startup total had 18 people, and I actually had a small marketing team. And it allowed me to put together my own kind of BI spreadsheet. And what that meant was for every single thing that we sent out, there were metrics. And the metrics at a meta level included what exactly the title of the piece was, what campaign it was tied to, what channel it was. And by channel, I mean, like, did it go out via email? Did it go out via Twitter? Did it go out via Facebook? Was it a Google AdWords ad? Like, what exactly was the medium? And who was the audience, and then like there were metrics for all those. So that meant that at the end of the day, one of the things I could do was I could look at and segment my data and say, okay, I could segment things by campaign because everything had campaign tag. I could segment things by channel, like how were channels performing against other channels. I could segment things by audience. Was it to existing customers? Was it to prospects? Was it to leads? Things like that. And what that allowed me to do was really understand what content and what channels were working for what target audience members.
What are a few common meaningful metrics that are effective and that are good for tracking content marketing effectiveness?
So I think that while I don't agree that traffic is the only metric for tracking content marketing, I think that from traffic, if you understand how traffic contributes to an eventual change in revenue, that can be great. So if you're going to look at traffic data, I think that it's never a good idea to say, when we have 1,000 eyeballs, we get 1 sale. When we have 2,000 eyeballs, we get 2 sales. So if we just get 10 million eyeballs, we'll have like X number of sales, right? I mean, because this is not actually a one-to-one correlation, because at some point your audience group taps out, right? Like there's just not an infinite number of people. So to me, getting to metrics that allow you to understand, and it's different for every organization, which is why I'm not going to just give you like a single silver bullet metric. But if you're going to use traffic, which recent survey says that the majority of marketers use website traffic as a measure of how effective their content marketing is. If you're going to use that, you need to be able to say, when people land on this, they buy Y. Like, this is what happens.
What are a few uncommon metrics that marketers should track to gain insight into their content marketing efficiency?
You know, I'm a really big fan of people looking at share of voice and kind of what happens with that. I think that there's a lot to be gained to understand because, you know, as I said a minute ago, we're not talking about putting your content out into a vacuum, right? Like, you're not competing against nothingness. You're competing against nothingness and a million other things. So places for eyeballs to look. So understanding that if you continue to create great content, do you actually take up a larger share of the eyeballs, or are other people doing it better? And if they are, what are they doing that works? I think that some other stuff that's really interesting to look at is I really like looking at keywords and kind of how I'm performing for the targeted topics that I want to be relevant for. So GinzaMetric does SEO and strategic marketing platform things. So we have a ton of keywords kind of around those areas. And I like to know how well we're performing, because it tells me that if we start to slide in performance, that not only are we not creating good content, even if we're creating good content, somebody else is creating better content because they're ranking higher. So it's not a common metric that content marketers use, but one that I think that people would be really well served if they paid attention to.
How do you know when you have the perfect marketing dashboard? What is the reality check?
I would say that the perfect marketing dashboard is going to be one that kind of continues to evolve, because channels and distribution tactics and marketing methods will continue to evolve. So you need something that's able to kind of keep up with the changing times and scale. So anything that is created and is great now but can't be great a year, 2 years from now is going to be tough because there really is a cost to quit, because it means losing or migrating data. It means retraining people. So something that scales and kind of moves with the times. Something else that's really key in a marketing dashboard for me is the ability to view all of your marketing channels in one place. It doesn't matter that you're not responsible for email marketing or that you're not responsible for social media marketing or paid advertising. You need to be able to see how all of those factors are contributing to your traffic and what about them is working, so that you can create the best possible content to be shared across those mediums.
What is a content marketing framework, and why do we need one?
A content marketing framework is basically something that will allow you to create as close to a closed loop system as your business will let you get. It's the thing that allows you to develop a repeatable process, not a mechanism that just stamps out cookie cutter content, but a repeatable framework for any type of content to be better utilized. And that incorporates, for me, goal setting at the beginning, and then understanding from goal setting to how you're going to put that into a strategy or a plan to roll out. And then once you release the content, getting feedback and optimizing content while it's in market, and understanding how you could create new content that would be better for that market. And then also allows internal stakeholders across different departments to give you feedback as well. So an example is, if you're in the marketing department and you're creating, let's say a case study or a white paper, and you send that out, and then your sales team gets on the phone with people that downloaded that, and specific questions are coming out, what they want to be able to do is share that information back with you, so that when you create new content, you're creating it based on real conversations that people are having, and real issues that they're bringing up. Same thing for community managers. A lot of times people forget that when you create all this new content, bring up these topics, announce these things, that the community managers may be on the front lines of kind of getting the swarm of that. So then that closes the loop, right? As you've got market feedback and kind of measurement, you've got internal feedback and measurement, and then you take those learnings, and this closed loop system should allow you to apply those to future marketing efforts.
What are the components of a good content marketing framework?
So you're going to need to make sure that you have the ability, since it starts with goal setting, that you understand what your organization's goals are, and that you understand what your department's goals are if you're not the one leading the department. So once you kind of understand those things, you can talk about what real content you need to create to make that happen. So that means you have to understand marketing strategy and company goals, and there should be a place for, maybe a shared document, like a Google Doc, or if you've got an internal, kind of sharing service, something like that, to really discuss and update goals regularly. If there are numbers tied to goals, which a lot of times there are, making sure that you understand and set up what the expectations of your marketing content campaigns are going to drive to help meet those. And then from there, creating some KPIs, right? So along the way, if your company's goal is $1 billion in revenue, it's too meta for you to say, from my content marketing campaign, I'm just going to draw a direct line to $1 billion. What you need to do is set some measurements, I'll create this content and it should get X amount of engagement here, drive this amount of conversions there, et cetera, et cetera. Once you do that and you release, you need ways to measure all of these things. So whatever analytics platforms and systems you have, you need access to those, and you need to be able to tie them together. And if there are ways to set goals within the analytics system that most closely match your organization's goals and your department's KPIs, you need to set those up at the inception of the campaign. It's a pain to add them later, and it means you also missed data. Then somebody needs to be responsible for actually looking at this stuff. It sounds super basic, but I can't tell you how many people I know that have analytics platforms and they don't really ever look at them. Or they look at them when somebody says, I need to know this. And then they just go in, they get that one number, and then they regurgitate it back out. But it's like, well, all this data is here to help make your life better, to help you make smarter choices. Let's do it a little something with it. And then in terms of getting other departments involved, I mean, this is about fostering people skills, and I know that those are hard for a lot of us, but you got to go sometimes and shake hands with somebody, meet with them, pick up the phone and talk to them, or explain what they're going to get out of it, right? You need a value proposition for the fact that they're going to take a few minutes every week or month or whatever and share their experiences with you, whether it's through their own analytics system or through just a quick 20-minute phone call, one Friday a month, where somebody can just tell you, here's what I'm hearing. And what you should be able to promise them is, we should be able to deliver you better content, and we should be able to deliver you more qualified leads, a better experience on your end, so that not only is your personal job better, but your entire department will look better because you will have a better starting point, because our goal is to always get you to a better starting point with your customer journey.
Well, we talked about some of the components, and it sounds like we talked about a little bit. We're going to talk about the next question, but what are some of the steps you want now? Putting it all together, what are some of the steps a company should include or follow in terms of putting all this together and making this content marketing framework?
Yeah, I mean, so it depends on kind of where you are, right? So if you're an individual contributor and not necessarily at the management or executive level, then I would say that this starts with having a conversation with management and executives to explain why this is important and how this is going to not be a burden on them, but rather a thing that's going to make their lives easier and make them look better. I can tell you that one of the things that's really hard for me, as I've kind of moved along in my career, is when I was younger, it was difficult to have all these ideas and want to implement these things and run into roadblocks, and then you realize as you kind of become the manager that a lot of times when you have a lot on your plate, right? Like most people I know are working managers, which means they're responsible for some tactics and execution as well as like the general management and oversight of an entire department. So when somebody wants to come in and try this new thing out, a lot of times it just means tacking something else onto my plate, right? So I would say that starting off with bite-sized chunks is really important. And I don't always advocate going and talking to other departments before you've spoken with your own person, because sometimes that gets a little bad. But if you already have regular meetings and conversations with other people, if there's a way to get just some like base level insight from other people and kind of start your own tactics, insights, and information, sometimes what you can do is you can put together a recommendation or a small report with some recommendations that say, hey, here's 3 things I learned from this, and here's an outcome, here's a suggestion I have for something that we could do differently, and I've taken a first stab at it. So then you've actually taken it 80% of the way by yourself, so that your manager's not like stuck with 100% of figuring out how to handle this new thing you want to do. If you're in management and executive stuff, I'd say that, like, 1, give this stuff a try. It's great for your team because it systemizes a lot of stuff and actually takes a lot of the onus off of you having to deal with the day-to-day, because people have like a very specific set of things happening. And it allows you and your team to be more strategic, because it takes a lot of like little tactically stuff away from being so top of mind, because it's in a process. So that's a really great benefit of going ahead and doing this. And then, talk to your other departments. Like, get on board, get on the same page. It's kind of a rising tide raises all boats situation, right? Like, your group does good, another group does good, company is profitable and doing well, everybody celebrate.
In terms of the questions you need to ask or the metrics you need to follow, how do you validate that your content marketing framework is working?
I mean, this is going to sound snarky, but it's not, surprisingly, is increased revenue, right? Or like company goals closer to met or exceeded, right? You should see up and to the right improvement in your actual in your metrics. And like I said, setting those metrics appropriately at the beginning is how you know that up and to the right is good. That's why I caution against saying just more tweets or just more followers or just more email opens is not necessarily like the up and to the right motion you want if those things don't actually end up leading to conversions and revenue that you can really take and say, look at what we've done. So that's why that's why setting it up at the very beginning with those KPIs is so important. And because it's always so different for every organization, that's why there's not just like a list of like 5 exact things I would measure, because it's really different across B2B, B2C, and then also really different across like agency and in-house.
Give us 4 social media content marketing hacks / tips.
I would say set up keywords for your marketing campaigns in Google Analytics and in SEO platform. This is how you'll know which topics, which like words and topics in your content are resonating best with your audience, and then you can actually create more content around those things. You can also take those learnings and apply them to email subject lines and advertising campaigns, because it's stuff that people are natively saying they want to do. You're not actually having to push them to it. They're opting in on their own. So that's one. The second one is watch for changes in competitor share of voice across campaigns and across these keywords and topics. So if you load in keywords as like keyword groups. And by keywords, I mean like the topics and things that are interesting to people. So if you load these in as groups and campaigns, what you can see is for each one of these groups, how much share of voice your competitor has and how much traffic you're currently driving. Now, if all of a sudden, if you're monitoring this stuff, if all of a sudden you see that one of your competitors, like let's say you're Nike, and you're talking about trail running shoes for women, and you've been really performing really well for that for a long time, and you wake up one morning and see that like Adidas is hammering it, you know that they're creating content and really doing a push, which means that if trail running shoes for women is your objective goal this quarter and you need to make sales, that somebody's coming up behind you, right? And getting ready to overthrow. So you need to like get on board. But this is actually, this putting in and following kind of what people are searching for and how content is performing, this is one of the earliest leading indicators that you can do for competitor analysis, and people overlook it a lot. The third is measure the topic, the distribution channel, and the content type individually so that you can normalize data. And what that means is, so the topic is trail running shoes for women. The distribution channels are email, like Google AdWords, Facebook ads, Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, all these things, right? Like all the marketing channels. And the content type is ebook, white paper, case study, ad version 1, ad version 2, like tweet version 1, tweet version 2, like these different things, right? So you measure each of these things individually so that you understand what's performing well. Is it the content? Is it the distribution channel, or is it the topic, so that you can take those learnings and apply them to new stuff? And the fourth thing I would say is use Google AdWords as a way to test marketing messaging. It's funny because I work in SEO and content analytics, but I would say that one of the things I use Google AdWords for that's really effective is I will throw like a $5 a day campaign up for a couple of weeks with maybe like 5 different ads with different messaging. And I will find out which one people click on the most, because that means that that's what resonates the best, because they're getting the same impressions each. So what we're looking at is a way to really quickly and effectively test top performing potential messages to roll out when you have to come up with something quickly, or you're kind of at a stalemate in between like what's really going to be the thing that causes some conversion here.
Are you running the same ads every day, or every day is a different set of ads?
So it's the same. It's the same like 5 ads for like a couple of weeks, or even just a few days, right? And what you do is you just give it long enough in market for everything to get a decent number of impressions for your target audience, right? So then what happens is they all have to have the exact same creative though, right? Like you can't make one blue, one red, and one green, because then you don't know if it's just like a color thing. So you've got to just say everything gets the exact same creative, and it's literally just the exact same typeface, exact same everything, just different words. And then you know what specific verbiage people are like is resonating the best with your target audience. And I'd say that like it's a really fast way to figure out if you're on the right track for messaging.
Erin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Steve. It's always fun.